Okay. Okay, let's start.
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm all right. Welcome back to the Mankheads podcast.
Welcome back to the Mankheads podcast. We totally said it in unison earlier, and it was awesome.
Dude, we'll never do that
We
again.
had to read. It's never going to happen again.
We fucked it.
We fucked it.
I was saying a bit earlier before we actually started rolling. I'm not nearly as prolific as I wish I was with the movie watching for the Oscars episode that we're going to be having coming up.
It's hard. It takes a long, many hours to get through.
Many an hour, and also
there are 54 films in total nominated. There are spreadsheets involved on my end.
If I watch like 8 out of the 10 Best Picture noms, that would be like, I would be super impressed with myself, honestly. Just like the Best Picture noms. We have Causeway listed on here as something that you wanted to talk about, but I do really want to say that just because I think Brian Tyree Henry is one of the best actors in Hollywood today that is just so underutilized in so much of the roles that he is cast in.
Agreed.
I think only in Atlanta and If Beale Street Could Talk do I think that he has been cast really great. You need to see Beale Street. It's so good.
Yeah,
and then I guess Causeway too. Apparently, got an Oscar nom.
He was phenomenal in it. Truly, he definitely, I think, kind of outshined Jennifer Lawrence. Actually,
what even is that movie about? I don't know anything about it.
So I was gonna backtrack for a second. So I'm on movie 15 out of 54 for my Oscar watch. I'm very proud of myself. I'll be honest. I want to watch all of the Best Picture nominees. I don't care if I watch all 54 total movies, because some things it's it's only nominated once for costumes, and I'm I don't really care. Whatever. Sorry, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris or whatever that one is, but not gonna watch it. Don't care. I have recently watched Women Talking, which was phenomenal. Loved it. Every single performance was just I don't know. Just
I'm glad you like that, because you've been talking a lot about that. That's been something you really wanted to see.
I really wanted to see it, and it didn't disappoint me whatsoever. Awesome. And then I watched Causeway when I visited home this weekend, because my parents have Apple TV, so I was really taking advantage of it. And Causeway is this movie starring Jennifer Lawrence and Brian Tyree Henry. It's Jennifer Lawrence's comeback to acting after having her baby, so it's kind of her coming back to a dramatic role after that, and then. Also, Ottessa Moshfegh was one of the writers of the film, so I was gotta watch this shit.
Nice.
Because I'm in my Ottessa Moshfegh era. But, yeah, Causeway. It's about this woman who comes back from, I want to say, Afghanistan, Iraq, one of those. And she was, seriously injured, had, big, brain injury kind of stuff, and had to relearn how to do stuff like walk and eat and brush her teeth and all that kind of stuff. And then she... goes home and gets a job and kind of is struggling through daily life, but is doing it. And she meets this car mechanic guy who has his own past trauma. His had to do more with I think drug and alcohol abuse, and then getting into this car accident where he accidentally killed somebody. But
is that Brian Tyree Henry's character?
And they just kind of trauma dump on each other and form this friendship and get kind of move past some of their stuff together, or attempts to anyway, finding somebody to relate to and be able to talk to about the deepest, darkest parts of your life. So there's this really great scene where they're in a pool that's I kind of the pivotal the big scene in the movie where Brian Tyree Henry really just blows Jennifer Lawrence out of the water, so to speak. So
I want to see it so bad.
Yeah, you should totally watch it.
Anyways, let's get into the episode, actually.
Yeah, so we said, welcome back to the Mankheads podcast. You can follow us on Instagram. You can watch this on YouTube right now.
Yeah. At Mankheads
podcast on Instagram. The Mankheads YouTube channel. You can also just follow Mankheads.
Yeah.
If you want.
Could do that.
Also Twitter, Mankheads.
Yeah.
All right. Hot take.
Oh, yes, we did it. Finally, we got it. All right. Wait, let me pull it up. Okay.
Okay, so
I have hot takes. Go.
So my hot take is that, don't come for me. My hot take is that Paul Mescal is just not as attractive as everyone is acting like he is. And I will, with a caveat, I do know that this is because I haven't watched Normal People.
I was going to say Normal People. Otherwise, that
will change my mind.
Otherwise, otherwise I wouldn't really think too much about him either.
Just on an objective base, reading him off of physical appearance and vibes when I watch him in interviews, I'm just I don't get it.
I think it's I think a similar thing could be said about Daisy Edgar Jones, in that she kind of looks like every like artsy girl.
Yeah, she also kind of looks like Anne Hathaway to me.
She does,
yeah.
dude. I thought when I first saw her, I thought it was Anne Hathaway. I was like, it's like Uncanny Valley Anne Hathaway, like Bizarro. Like,
AI generated Anne Hathaway.
But yeah, okay. My hot take. Ooh, let me see which one I like. I think headlights are too bright.
I was not expecting that at all.
I think headlights are too bright. I think headlights should be dim, actually. You know, I think headlights should serve the purpose of I can see that there is a car coming that way, and that should be it.
Oh, like for the other person, they see your headlights, they can see that you're coming.
Yeah. Like if I'm driving,
but like they're supposed to light up the road for you to see in front of you.
Streetlights, make more of those.
Not every place has. Okay, make more of those.
Yeah, make more of them.
That's a tall order, I think. Gonna be honest.
Listen,
tell that to Joe.
Yeah, well, Joe Biden is a you know, consistent listener. He's always like in our comment sections and stuff. So, Joe, if you could, you know, throw our brother a bone. Yeah. Anyways, hot takes. We're done.
They're too damn bright.
They're too damn bright. They're too bright. They should be dim.
All right.
What are we talking about?
What are we talking about today?
Finally, what are we talking about?
So, this episode is called Deep Cuts, and today we're each going to mention a couple of movies, TV shows, whatever, that we hold near and dear to our hearts, but are difficult to find streaming or are like now being brought back to the forefront after being difficult to find for a long time.
You're good.
You're good. We saw you.
Katrina Mahinder.
No, I had a seizure instead of saying her name. Okay. So, deep cuts that we like. And I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the concept of a digital dark age, which is something I've been kind of really a little bit obsessive about for the past couple of years. I know that I started talking about this in about 2020, I think. I was just like, man, so much information is going to get lost, if we ever don't have access to the internet. And also the burning of the Library of Alexandria or something. If we lost the internet, think about how much information we would just lose, right?
Dude.
And not even just that, but the fact that we think of the internet as being this thing that's over here and it's going to last forever and it's just up in some cloud, but it is all stored on physical devices that degrade over time and become obsolete over time. So, and that's not even the definition of a digital dark age, by the way. That is what I think of when I say that. The actual definition of it is that it's a lack of historical information in the digital age as a direct result of outdated file formats, software, hardware, that becomes corrupt, scarce, or inaccessible as technologies evolve and data decay. So it's kind of what I'm talking about, but it's also it's
more like past technologies that have become obsolete now because of the digitization of so much information. And
I'm kind of on this thing of things that don't make it to the internet get lost forever. So I don't know where to go next.
Well, we have the example of the silent film era.
Yeah, about it's something 90% of all silent films are just gone forever, destroyed, lost, whatever. I mean, nitrate film burned. Was it nitrate, right?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
Something like that.
I didn't go to film school.
Highly flammable. They would be lost in fires all the time. And also the fact that in an era of the silent films, before there was this idea of syndicating things and streaming them and having distribution deals like that, they would just make stuff, show it around, be like, okay, cool, and then just destroy it.
Yeah, God, no use for that.
Anyway, done with that.
Awesome.
So, just this idea of information and what is worth saving and what is not worth saving, and even if things are worth saving, do they make it? Mm-hmm. They don't always, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Since the beginning of time, humans have liked to record data in some way or another. We have cave paintings from the cavemen or whatever. True. Showing what their life was like, I guess. Hunting animals and stuff.
Spear and mammoths.
And now we have computers. I even think about things like the fact that even in my lifetime, VHS tapes gone, and like we don't really use DVDs anymore, but people like you and me that like to own things own them. We have some things we'll show you in a second. But that even those things, like I hadn't even really thought about this, but we already know that like digital degradation happens. Like when things are existing only digitally, their bits and bytes are recorded on like magnetic discs or whatever, right? And then there's also the optical recording that you get on CDs and DVDs. So there are different kinds of digital recording, but all of these things are still physical and can degrade over time, or just become obsolete, and you can't transfer that data, or like you don't have something to read it anymore. There's this, because, you know, the internet exists in a cloud, there's this ephemeral nature to it. Things just come and go. I think it's funny that we're so used to like things like Vine, like coming and going. There's how many videos, couldn't even imagine the number of videos I saw on Vine and stuff that I'll never see again. Because they're gone, because that particular one didn't get downloaded by somebody or screen recorded by somebody and saved and put on YouTube or anywhere else. Yeah,
or like the phone that they like recorded that on, they like upgraded, got a new phone, and like didn't transfer that data.
Didn't transfer it over. I know I've lost like many photos and many things because I just was a dumbass when I was younger, and I didn't know how important it was, or it would be to my later self, to have transferred those things over. I mean, about to that point also, like not so much in like a such a finite way as that, but like even with like TikTok and just the amount of information that is available at any given moment, so much of it just gets lost and will never like really be like reached or accessed in the same way, just because of like happenstance or algorithms or something like that, you know? That was another concept that I saw come up when I was looking at stuff about the digital dark age, was like this idea that we have so much information, but we somehow like paradoxically know less than we used to, because we can pick and choose what we pay attention to.
Well, like even like, and that reminds me of like something I was talking to Kasdan about, where it's like a lot of Gen Z, and myself included, don't know how computers or like tech stuff work, because we just like had it like built for us, and we like the internet, by the time we were like really accessing it a lot, had been around for a while, and it only in like our age did it become like what it is today, but it was the things were already established, like the groundwork was already there. And
we just have like an intuitive understanding of how to use at least the interface.
And like meanwhile, like some like older millennials are know exactly like what's wrong at any given time. If there's like some sort of like tech problem, they're just like, okay, let me like get in there and fix or some of that. If I like, I'm like. It's like a horseshoe theory where it's like I'm like, now I kind of have pretty much the same amount of knowledge of like computers and the internet as my parents do. Kind of.
I kind of think like about the same. There's some things that
there's like areas where it's like I know more about. I know more about like I guess like
my dad can help me like
cultures and stuff like that on the internet.
Same.
And like how people like use the internet to communicate with it. But in terms of like how to actually like use it and manipulate it physically, you know, if there's something wrong, or if like there's some sort of like I don't know, like I keep saying like tech support thing or something like that, you know, I have to take it to the fucking Microsoft store if my server isn't working, you know? I'm like, or like I take it to the computer repair shop and have the guy over there that knows like a lot more about it to be like, no, it's literally fine, you just have to do like this thing, type, and it's fine. I was like, oh shit, cool, thanks.
Figuring out that when I plugged in my HDMI thing, I had to go in my settings and change where the audio output was going, was like, oh, like that was like so easy. I don't know why I thought that was like some crazy like issue that I didn't understand. My dad can help me do things like hook up speakers and hook up like a whole like set of electronics together, but he like gets mad when he doesn't understand a meme.
It's like I had to like ask call my dad for some help on hooking up like a sound system that he had given me, and he like when he gave it to me, he was like, it was like a Christmas present or something like that. He's like, oh yeah, it's really easy, like you can just like, you know, like wrap the copper wires around it and then it'll be good. And I was like, why do I have to do that? And like having to shove like little wires into a clamp thing. It's just like, and then I have to like twist them around and like twist it in and stuff. And I'm like, what?
Like, what do I have to do that? Oh, and I just need to like cut. Oh, this isn't working, so I need to cut down and just expose new wires.
I'm like, that seems so counterintuitive. I'm destroying the thing. Like, this seems very valuable.
I'm confused.
I was like, what the fuck? Anyways, digressions.
So new efforts.
they're and to this point though, like with all the stuff that's been like kind of lost or hard to access, there have been increasing like new efforts to like be able to like access these things a lot easier. And the one thing that I like think of a lot is the Film Foundation's World Cinema Project, which has been restoring lots of important films from across the world to bring them to contemporary audiences. And some of the films that or at least one of them that I have chosen to talk about, I'll talk about a little bit later, is like owes a lot of like credit to that.
I appreciate the efforts of people trying to like preserve things like that so much.
No, yeah,
Criterion Collection, of course.
Criterion Collection and like other things like Movie as well, that bring a lot of like really things that would be obscure, that would be deep cuts, so to say.
Yeah.
I think it's like really important that a lot of these things are, or that these like services are bringing titles that would have been pretty obscure.
And forgotten.
Into new audiences, because a lot of these like movies I would have never really heard of, you know, or maybe I would be like, oh, read about this like really important release that was important to like 1930s Mexican cinema or something like that. I'm like, oh wow, I wish I could watch that somewhere. I can't because it's not accessible anywhere.
Yeah.
But now it is with these new services that are like dedicated to bridging that gap. Yeah.
All right, so without further ado, we're going to get into our picks, I guess.
Yeah.
So first, I'm going to talk about a little sitcom called Northern Exposure, which I have a DVD set of right here.
Ooh.
Northern Exposure, 6 seasons. It was a CBS comedy. So funny and cute. It was actually compared to Twin Peaks at the time that it was on, and it was on at around the same time as Twin Peaks. It started in like 1990, I think, early 90s. Went on for 6 seasons. It's based in this fictional town of Sicily, Alaska. It's kind of a fish out of water story where this city slicka doctor, Joe Fleischman, is like sent out to be like the town doctor in Sicily, Alaska, and he's like, I don't remember why he has to go there, and it's like not his choice, but he's all like, condescending and thinks he's better than them. But obviously it ends up being his community and his home, and he loves it there. And you have this great cast of characters with the townspeople. And the reason that I learned this recently, the reason that you actually can't stream it anywhere, and we're not sure if you will ever be able to stream it anywhere, is the fact that at the time it was made, it featured this soundtrack of popular songs, all popular songs. And that was something that people loved about it, like when it was on, was that it had this great soundtrack. There are older releases of DVDs that have replacement music in them. And there's actually a newer one, like, I can't remember when, but like at some point there was a re-release of it on DVD with the original music in it again. But the music makes it a problem for streaming. Having to license those songs for streaming is like a totally different animal, apparently, which kind of sucks. This one, I think, is from like 2020, and I actually haven't cracked it open yet. But I did watch the whole show with my parents when I was a kid. And it's really funny. Love it.
That's like interesting that music is like, or it takes like an extra step for streaming services to license music. I feel like that should already be the case once the film itself has already been able to license those movies, and that those come with the licensing agreement for the film.
For the film or the show. It doesn't make sense to me that it doesn't cross over.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite characters on the show was played by John Corbett. You might know him from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. He was also Aiden on Sex and the City. He plays this character named Chris, who had a radio show, Chris in the Morning. And there was this scene where he's talking about the fact that like we're all going to become like really isolated from each other because of like our growing like dependence on technology. He's like helping this character Maggie install a washer and dryer into her like house, and she's like, "Oh, I love this. It's so convenient. Like whatever." And he's like, We're on our total blitzkrieg towards isolation. He goes on this like this rant about the fact that like we're all just going to get so like comfy with our little our at home washing machines and this and that we're never going to talk to each other again. And it's like, he kind of wasn't wrong. Now this was before. Wow, it's so dark.
It got very dark. There's someone behind a cloud or something.
Yeah. I'm like, okay. Anyway, he said all of that before cell phones even existed. And I just like, I don't know. Craziness.
Crazy.
Really did something with that. And just one little, yeah, just a couple of little things about it too. Something that makes it like really different from sitcoms of the time is that it didn't have a soundtrack at all. I mean, a laugh track at all.
Oh.
Didn't have a laugh track at all. And it was just like intelligent. It like expected its viewers to be like intelligent and be able to like handle sensitive topics and like intelligent humor and stuff, which I love about it. That's why it's so great. And another reason that it's so great, writer-producer David Chase, who was executive producer and showrunner for The Sopranos. So it's a great show.
Cool.
And we have no other shows to talk about, but I will say that I just found out that Arrested Development is leaving Netflix, and we don't know where it's going, right?
I think it's gonna find a place on Hulu, is what I've heard a little bit. I really hope so, because that show is fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it always sucks to find out that like something is leaving and you don't know where it's going, and you don't know if you're ever going to be able to watch it again.
That's how I felt with How I Met Your Mother when that was initially leaving Netflix. I was like, no, and that's why I got a Hulu account, because I was like, I want to watch this show. I love this. Yeah.
Why don't you go next, and I'll go back to mine.
Okay. My first pick. I think we're gonna go into movies now, I guess.
Yes.
My first pick is Michael Haneke. Film.
Oh, fuck. He did that.
That's probably a gross mispronunciation. Mikhail Haneke, I guess. I don't know how to pronounce it. He's Austrian. Film, 2005 film called Caché. And Haneke is a pretty like well-known director, so it's not like this is like the most like obscure thing. But for whatever reason, this is like one of the only movies of his that is not included like in streaming a lot of places, and also on like the Criterion Collection, because Haneke has a handful of his films on the Criterion Collection. Funny Games, Code Unknown, The Piano Teacher, and then also the Criterion Collection is also coming out with a new like Haneke collection. Let me like see what films are going to be on there. Haneke Collection, Criterion. I don't know. They're coming out with a Haneke trilogy, like box set, pretty soon. Still no Caché though.
Oh fuck.
Yeah.
Really?
And I'm like, shit. Okay. Well, the film it was never like too terribly like hard to access in its like origin, I guess. Coming out and distributed. It was like, you know, like I said, Haneke is an established filmmaker. You know, he's been making stuff like from the 90s into the 2000s and into the 2010s. Amour, that's another one. That one was nominated for Best Picture in like 2012 or something like that.
Damn.
Another French film of his.
Yeah.
But this, and it was like, so Caché was distributed by Sony Pictures Classics in the US. It was featured on the Criterion channel once in the past in like 2019. And it was like with like a list or like a along with other surveillance themed movies like The Conversation, but it was never added to the collection, and I don't know why, because it's really great in my opinion. I think it does really interesting things with camera and like perspective. It's like much of the film is like shot in the kind of like a voyeurist like perspective, I guess. It's like I guess I'll go into the plot a little bit if I haven't talked about it already on this podcast, which I'm pretty sure I have. But it centers around this like affluent, like upper middle class Parisian family who starts getting. Oh, actually, you know what? Can you give me the DVD?
Oh yes.
I totally forgot.
Yeah.
There she is, Caché. Well, that this family gets like videotapes sent to their house, and it's like on the videotapes they're like included with like crude like childlike drawings that are pretty violent, with like someone with like blood in their mouth or something like that, and then also the videotapes are like of like their house, and like it's always like the camera's very static in this movie, and it's always kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, the opening shot is just like watching.
It's just for like 3 minutes of like, or like 5 minutes of just like the house, and it's really hard to tell like sometimes in the movie what is shown to be like on these videotapes that they're getting and what is like
just a shot camera in the movie.
What is the shot, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a shot at some point that's a direct copy of the opening shot, which is like one of the videotapes being played. And then at one point, one of the characters walks out and the camera moves with them. So then it's like, oh, okay, so that's what that was. Really interesting with like that kind of stuff. I think there's like really like cool stuff to be had from it, but not on any like streaming services or like any that are like, you know, like, or the more mainstream ones. Let me look it up again just to make sure I'm not like, you know, preaching about nothing.
There's a lot of things actually. When I figured out that a lot of things that you can't find anywhere else are on the Roku channel.
It is, you can rent it on like Vudu and Amazon and YouTube and stuff like that. But it's nowhere streaming like for free with a subscription, you know? So that makes it like just that much harder to like
there's another layer of like
and like if you're really like obviously if you really want to watch it, you can really just watch it. It's not terribly hard to come across. It's not like some of the other picks that we have on this list, but it's just one that is a little bit more obscure without much really like in the way of not having obscurity. That was a terrible way to word that, you know? But like it's kind of needlessly obscure, I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, like especially because his filmography is available otherwise, it seems like. And why is this one particular film
this one film of his
problematic? Not problematic, but like why is it difficult to access? Inaccessible, that's what I was trying to say. I think I watched it's not on the Criterion channel. No,
it was just like very like, you might have rented it on Amazon or something like that.
I'm like, how the heck did I watch it when I watched it? Which is why I'm like, how the heck did I watch Cocoon when I watched Cocoon? I think I've figured it out. But okay, so I'll move on to my first film pick, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, Dogma by Kevin Smith. This film is from 1999. It has everybody in it. I mean, not everybody, but it has so many people in it. We've got Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. We have Chris Rock. We have Alan Rickman. We have Salma Hayek. And then, of course, we have Jay and Silent Bob. And it's so funny. It's a religious-themed comedy, which made it controversial at the time that it came out. It's about this woman who is, like, questioning her Catholic faith. And then she gets a visit from this angel who is like, you're the only person who can like save us from these two like hooligans that are about to like destroy the earth. Basically, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon play these two like fallen angels who are trying to get back into heaven, but in order to do so, they're gonna like destroy the universe. Basically, they're gonna like destroy Earth and everything on it. So it's like her job as you come to find out, one of the last like descendants of Christ or something, to go like try to deal with them. I don't know. I think it's funny that it was so controversial when it came out because Kevin Smith is Catholic and he wasn't really denouncing Catholicism. He just made it at a time when he was starting to question his own faith. It's not necessarily some like expose of the Catholic Church. It's not at all. It's just this funny movie with like angels and demons in it and stuff. Like, I love it. So this is Kevin Smith's fourth feature film, right? So many of his other films, you can, and you know, like Clerks, the most famous one, is like, obviously it's available. You can watch Clerks. This one in particular is not available because the rights to it were sold to Bob and Harvey Weinstein. In 1999, when the movie was released, they had deals with two different places, I can't remember where, for the for theatrical release and then like home video, like this, right? But other than that, this deal was made before like streaming existed, and time has passed to the point that like streaming is not built in to the deal for this movie. And not only that, but obviously they have fallen from grace in Hollywood. And what do you mean? Particularly Harvey.
How? Those guys? What happened?
Wait, what did they do?
What did they do?
Wait, I'm not sure.
I mean, I don't. Guy who been in a coma since 2016.
Me neither, or me too. So
sorry.
So their company that they ran filed for bankruptcy. By whatever. And when that happened, Lantern Entertainment purchased a bunch of their catalog, like a lot of the things that they had the rights to. But on that roster, you will not find this film. And so people were like, where's this? As it turns out, the running theory is that actually, like, the Weinstein Company didn't have the rights to it, but personally, like, Bob and Harvey have the rights to this movie. And they are kind of holding it hostage. Like, they have the rights to it, and if they want to sell it off, they can, but they don't want to, apparently. So we might not ever see this movie go to streaming, which is really unfortunate because it's so funny. It's a cult classic. If you can buy... I scoured Half Price books for months, actually, to find this. So I was very happy when I did.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's Dogma.
I'm gonna like just talking about like trying to find the DVD. I can't find the DVD for cachet for shit. Like I would always like try to look at like Half Price books and stuff like that and be like, okay, is it here? Nope. Okay. And then like every time I go back, I'm like, all right, is it here? Nope. Okay. Well, eventually I just bit the bullet because I really wanted to watch it again.
So Diego's next pick.
Okay, so my second pick is a film called Taipei Story. It's a 1985 film by Edward Yang, who was a prominent feature in the new Taiwan cinema movement in the 80s. And the film, it like really showcases, I think, a lot of like what made like, at least from my like brief impressions of it, I'm not too like versed in this movement, but what like showcases what made this movement important. Also collaborated with a lot of other like prominent like filmmakers in the new Taiwan cinema movement. Yang co-wrote the film with Ho Xiaoxin, who's a fellow new Taiwan cinema filmmaker, and Ho Xiaoxin also starred in the film as the leading or like the male lead of like a married couple that the film focuses on, and it's kind of like a film that's about how two parties in this couple like react to the past and the passage of time. The male lead, and I forget the characters' names, or the husband, I guess. He is like an ex, like has been like youth baseball star or something like that, and he had dreams of like going to America and making it big there and like being able to like establish himself in like in the West. And his wife very much is like trying to run from like the passion and just forget it as quickly as possible. There's a lot of like stuff tied in with her father that just like really like kind of like, I don't know, like dragged her down a lot. And also it's like indicated in like the way they both like respond to the like people or like their like social settings. There's a scene where they're both at a bar and she's having a really good time and he's just like having like a terrible time, and it ends up like becoming like this really like uncomfortable thing. This film is one of the examples of films that are being like brought back into a mainstream focus because of efforts like the Film Foundation's World Cinema Project. It was included, I think, in like the second box set from the Criterion collection of like the World Cinema Project. It's just been like restored like really recently. It had been like it had not been a key figure in like Western conversations of film until 2017, actually, when it made its U.S. theatrical premiere there in New York, after having been like properly restored and stuff like that. So it was really just like unknown really to like Western audiences until 6 years ago. And I hadn't even like come across it until I came across A Brighter Summer Day, which is I don't know if it's the next film that Edward Yang would make after Taipei Story, but I'm sure I've talked about it like playing on this podcast as well. We watched it a while back and it was really fantastic and really great. It's like a 4-hour long like coming of age epic.
That was a doozy.
Yeah. With Taipei Story, you can really see like just like the language of the film like present in like, or like the language of like A Brighter Summer Day present in Taipei Story. You can see like where like that goes from, even though Taipei Story is a much more like intimate setting with a much smaller cast of characters than A Brighter Summer Day. But yeah, it's thankfully now pretty accessible. Excuse me. Pretty accessible now. But for a while, it just wasn't ever like really like thought about in terms of like really important films from a pretty important film movement.
Yeah. So. You picked much more like, I don't know, like I think cinematically important things. Although I was thinking earlier, like everything is culturally relevant in one way or another, whether it's because it's, you know, ubiquitously like loved or whether it's offensive, you know,
even like I don't like, I guess like Dogma may not have like the like artistic significance of like a Taipei story or something like that, or like a but I think it provides such an interesting case study, you know, as to how something like this could just be like lost to time because of like weird legal loopholes, weird contracts, or like even like petty like reasons. If like if it's brothers,
petty, I mean, I don't even know if it's petty. I think they're just
in so much shit.
Yeah, there's in so much shit. It's like that's the least of their concerns. Yeah, it's like trying to get Dogma to streaming. Like they don't care.
Like the people demand Dogma.
Like, the people want Dogma.
The people want Dogma. No, and like I think you're right. I think like everything there's like a cultural value to like everything one way or another. Even like especially also because you said like it like it created a big like buzz at the time about like.
But like something like this isn't going to get added to the Criterion collection.
Right. Yeah.
You know? So like it's probably going to be in obscurity forever. This is probably going to be the only way to watch it like until the end of time, which is really upsetting because this is going to break down. You should
send that to like some like grading agency, like a collectible grading agency, and be like, oh yeah, rate this, like with like baseball cards and stuff. You know how they do that? They'll be like, oh yeah, this is like a 10 out of 10. Perfect condition. You send it to them because it's gonna be a collector's item one day.
Yeah, there's a little like dent in the box, so it's definitely not in perfect condition.
Bump it down to a 7, but you know what? There's no existing 10 of Dogma, so you take what you can get.
This is the best we got.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about two films in tandem because they are actually both owned by Disney, but they are not streaming for different reasons. So, Song of the South. We know it's controversial. I'm not defending anything, any way that it depicted anything.
Go on.
But I grew up watching that movie. We actually had a bootleg VHS of it when I was a kid. Like, don't know where my mom got that, but she got that at some little bookstore somewhere in the South when I was a kid. And I'm pretty sure we still have it, actually. And you actually can watch Song of the South I immediately found it on the Internet Archive, this website that is an internet archive of all this media. But it's a Disney film, and it is not streaming and never will be streaming on Disney Plus because of its controversial nature. It's set in the South following the Civil War, and it just has a rather inaccurate depiction of life for Black people in the South.
I actually never watched it. What kinds of like inaccurate depictions? Like as if like they're
happy and treated well.
Yeah, okay, that's what I figured. I was like, yeah, okay. I feel like I have an idea, but I just want to like get that.
Not being persecuted the way they really were. But and it's kind of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Wow, that was like Mr. Roger Rabbit. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where it's a mixture of live action and animation. And, you know, it has that famous song, Zippity Doo Dah. Like, I love that song. That's a vibe. But I get why it's controversial, and I get why it's offensive. Something that I don't understand is why, and actually also, too, like, here's nothing... If you're a Disney kid, this is going to be like, this is a fact that's relevant. But Splash Mountain, the ride at Disney, is based on a scene from this movie. So it's one of the like the big famous rides at Disney World. But something that I don't understand is why some films get to be released on Disney with this disclaimer, oh, hey, this is outdated or offensive or like whatever, but here it is. And why some films are like, you know what, this is never going to see the light of day again. I just don't understand that.
What's an example of like the former, like the, like what movie has like a disclaimer on it?
I'm not sure that it's on Disney. It might have been on HBO that I watched this, but one time I watched Gone with the Wind and it had a message at the front of it. Okay. And I was like, makes sense.
Makes sense, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, true. So I'm like, I just don't know why they couldn't do that for this one too, because it's just... And also, like, I was saying this to you earlier, like, of all of the things that are, like, controversial or in some way offensive, this is also just a children's movie, so it's pretty lighthearted. And it's I just don't understand.
I think maybe because Disney has such like a reputation to uphold as being like, you know, very like safe and like that kind of thing.
That's true.
And like because like I don't know if there are other examples of like films on like Disney Plus that have a disclaimer on them.
There are. Like, I don't know what they are, but I know. Yeah, there are.
Maybe it's and then maybe just also because like there's just such like a stigma around like this film because of like how like poorly it portrays Black personhood in the following Civil War, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just something that they just like don't want the press with, you know.
It's like, you know what, we just don't want to do it because someone like I was reading an article and someone had like specifically asked, or like Bob Iger was talking about like these things being released with disclaimers in front of them, but he mentioned specifically that this film was one of those films that wouldn't because of just like too much controversy. Not gonna deal with it. It
could be that the controversy is like even like surpassed like what is like truly like problematic about the film, or like
I think it has.
And whether or not that's like
it's just a conversation much larger than this movie.
Yeah. It is, and it's like Disney with just such a like so much like. I don't know. I was gonna say so much at stake for them, but I don't know. I feel like they're kind of untouchable.
Yeah, honestly.
But I was gonna say maybe it's just something that they would rather just not deal with at all.
Yeah, that could be it.
Yeah.
And then the other one owned by Disney is Cocoon, which is a 1985 sci-fi movie that was like really big at the time that it came out. And it's now another one of those movies that has just fully faded into obscurity. Can't find it anywhere. I'm sure it's not one of the 80s movies that kids our age know about at all.
I don't know shit about this.
It's great. It's so fun to watch. But you can only watch it by buying a DVD of it online. And the DVD might not work in your DVD player. It's a whole thing. I was reading all stuff about it. Like some places will charge like $100 for a DVD of this movie because they're so hard to come by.
It's a Ron Howard film.
It's a Ron Howard film. And it's just like, it's about this group of old folks. I think they're in Florida. I can't remember. Like living in an old folks home. And right next to them is this like big mansion where like, I guess like the people like aren't there, or maybe no one's living there or something. But some of the old people will go like sneak over and like swim in the pool and play around or whatever. And then these like alien pods like appear in the pool one day. And after the old people go swim in the water, they are like granted a youth again. And it's like, what's all this about? And, then the rest of the movie happens. But it's so funny. I personally was like so obsessed with the fact that it was this like big budget sci-fi movie with an entirely like a cast of old people. I just thought it was awesome.
Well, I'm looking it up right now, and it won an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects.
It won an Academy Award, which is okay. Let's talk about the visual effects. This is a movie that I think I've mentioned this before. It's this one movie that I like would really love to see a remake of. Yes, I hate remake culture. I want it to stop remaking things. Let's do things that are original. But I would love to see Cocoon remade because I love the story so much, but the visual effects are so mad outdated now you watch them that you're like, yeah, this could be a lot better. But needless to say, I'm upset that you can't stream this anywhere. And once again, it's because of the music in the movie. Yep.
A recurring theme.
So those are my Disney picks.
Nice. I got one more pick. I guess two more, also in tandem. It's a documentary, a short documentary called "Children of the Fields," and then a full-length feature called "Alambrista" or "The Illegal." And the director of both, his name is Robert M. Young, shot the documentary in like 71, 72. It came out in 73. And that was part of his research for developing the full-length narrative feature Alambrista, which would come out like 3 or 4 years after that. Another, I don't know if this was in the like World Cinema Project, but was able to watch them on the Criterion channel. So again, like
nice.
More films becoming like accessible because of efforts like that. Let me look it up real quick.
Though that is just another streaming service that you have to pay for.
That's true though. Yeah. And it's like, I wish like, and I'm sure like.
There's a paywall.
Yeah, there's a paywall there. Yeah, it's a paywall, so it is a little bit inaccessible in that sense. But if you already have the Criterion channel, you could watch these films,
which is a good investment. There's a lot of stuff that
I think
you can't find other places on there.
Exactly. So. Like literally 2 of the picks that I guess 3 of the 4 picks that I have are available on there. So
Slay.
Thank you, Criterion. Sponsor this podcast. Please. But the film and the documentary center around migrant farm workers in the American Southwest, and the documentary Children of the Fields follows a family of migrant workers, and I think, well, just all around the Southwest, like in Arizona, California, Texas, even, and Robert M. Young was able to develop this family's. I'm blanking on the family's name. I need to look it up because I.
Xerox Corporation.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. I'll just read the little blurb on Letterboxd. Children of the Fields was produced for a television series on children sponsored by the Xerox Corporation and dealt with migrant farm workers. To make it, Young immersed himself in the lives of Mexican-American migrant laborers in the Southwest. He befriended the Galindo family, Polo, his wife Lily, and their 5 young children who all toiled in the fields. They agreed to permit Young to follow them during the harvesting season and to be subjects of his film. So it follows just the lives that these families lead in such harsh conditions in the harvesting season, which is the summers, or the springs and the summers and into the fall, of just moving around from farm to farm. Really, you're working on this farm one day, and then the next day you have to drive to Arizona from California to go work on this other farm, and then maybe the next day you're gonna have to drive all the way up to Missouri or Iowa or Michigan. Which was the case for a lot of people in my family back in the 50s and into the 70s and stuff like that, when this film was shot and came out, and it offers really important insights to just stuff that often just doesn't get covered. I guess it's very hands off. The documentary is it literally just following this family around, and some of the sweetest moments and also most heartbreaking are moments where the kids were after finishing up a days of work, the kids are just playing around in the fields, and there's a sequence that made me cry my fucking eyes out, where they found a little bunny rabbit, and so they got were able to capture it, and they were just holding it oh, cute little bunny. And meanwhile, it's okay, well, I have to go to bed and wake up at 3:00 in the morning tomorrow to go back into
they're just kids,
and they're just fucking kids. I'm oh, this just sucks so much. And yeah, I'm getting emotional thinking about it right now. And then Alambrista didn't follow so much of the familial aspect of it, whereas it was more of just a singular odyssey type thing of this one young man that crosses the border illegally and moves from farm to farm to try to find work, and just it's kind of it doesn't have a plot really. It's just it just follows him going around, and it's a much more stylized, which it was kind of interesting to me. Not stylized, but there's much more stylistic elements, which is much I guess kind of should have been expected. But having seen the documentary before I saw the feature, it was kind of jarring. Still still not to say that it wasn't very well done, and I think Young did a really good job of honoring these kinds of stories, and yeah, no, to bring it back to the point of the podcast, I guess, it's an important these kind of important stories that are being told and being able to be accessed by a larger audience through more efforts to bring these stories to the forefront.
Yeah.
So awesome. Cool.
I have one last film to talk about. Once again, I'm I look stupid bringing up these movies.
No, my bad.
But Drop Dead Gorgeous is a 1999 incredible dark comedy mockumentary.
Actually, I haven't seen it. I don't know why I said woohoo.
First film directed. It's so fucking funny. I'm going to try to find it on DVD or something so that we can watch it, because it's one of my favorite things. It's so fucking funny. It's set in Minnesota. And it's just following these girls getting ready for a beauty pageant, but shit starts going wrong and contestants start dropping like flies.
Oh.
And it has so many people in it. It has Kirsten Dunst, Amy Adams, Denise Richards. They're all like contestants. So many other people. I think Allison Janney is in it as a random side person. And I'm just looking at the Wikipedia page actually because I was like, who directed this? Michael Patrick Jan. It was his first film, and then like don't recognize like hardly anything else that he did, and then he just directed like some episodes of like television and stuff. So I don't know, kind of interesting that it's like this is like the first thing he did. It was a total and absolute flop at the time that it came out, but it has become a cult classic in the years since.
Nice.
At one point, I know it was streaming on HBO Max, but it's no longer streaming there, and it is no longer streaming anywhere, as far as I can tell. So it's just one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. I'm like, why are these comedies that I really like not anywhere? But they're so good. And even if they're not necessarily the most profound things, they are really fun pieces of media that I wish were still available for people to see, because like both of those, Dogma and Drop Dead Gorgeous in particular, are just these like cult classics that are so great, and really just like worth a watch at least once. So upsetting to see that you can't see them anywhere. So we don't have any other movies or television shows, and this isn't like a super big point, but this is happening with music too, right? People who, like Joni Mitchell is one of my favorite artists of all time, and she decided to pull her music from Spotify because of Joe Rogan, right?
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, she was like...
It was her and Neil Young.
And like they were upset that Spotify was still keeping up like Joe Rogan stuff. And it was like propagating like conspiracies about like anti-vax and stuff like that.
Which I get. Like, you're not fixing that by taking your music away.
I think the idea was that more people would...
take their stuff off.
Take their stuff down along with them. And eventually, like, force Spotify's hand into action, but
didn't
people
this is like
agree.
Jay-Z trying to have his own streaming platform. Like, didn't really work out, did it?
it was Tidal, right?
I think so.
Wasn't that where The Life of Pablo was initially released too? Like, you couldn't get it anywhere else.
I think so. I had an illegal internet download of it when it came out. So that's upsetting. I hate it whenever I'm on my car and Spotify's on shuffle, and her song will come up and just go.
You
just
see the name pop up, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like. Yeah. Like, I don't think she had any forethought about the fact that she was not going to carry over to the next generation if she was not going to be available online.
I think about that even like with like other stuff, maybe like artists that aren't quite as like, prominent as like Joni Mitchell, because there are some things like, well, not the whole like catalog of like their stuff, but like there's a few tracks from like Nina Simone like live records that I really love that I can only access on YouTube because people rip them from the LP and put them on YouTube or something like that, and they're not on Spotify or like on like Apple Music or anything like that. Like they're just inaccessible in like much of the digital realm. And it's just like shit.
I think two of You and Me by Penny and the Quarters, recorded by this high school group, and then left in a box for decades until somebody randomly found it, and now it's on Spotify, but much of their music is not on Spotify.
I was gonna say, and it was added like really recently, within the last like 5 years or something like that. I remember when I saw it, I was like, what? It's like, because I had no knowledge of like all that kind of like stuff, like like other workings of it. But yeah, there's a lot of also like punk bands and like smaller smaller groups that I've come to really enjoy over the last like few years. One of them is called Youth Brigade, and I like got into them because I heard like something like they mentioned on a podcast or something. I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. I looked them up, and like I saw like an album of theirs was released in 2021, and I was like, what? And I'm like, oh no, this album came out in like 1985. And then it was just like only just like added on to like digital platforms a year or two ago. I was like, shit.
Which it makes me think too that it's like that's actually a really cool like good thing about Spotify is the autonomy that it gives people to upload their own music somewhere and have it listened to and discovered by people. that's so cool. There's so many things from the past that nobody is advocating for, making sure carries over to the digital age, which is really unfortunate.
So, and I think that, yeah, like definitely, like it's good that Spotify like kind of like democratizes that process.
Yeah.
And the ability to have like the individual creators be able to like take or like be able to like put their own things out there without having to go through like a certain like loops and holes and stuff like that.
And like, if we happen to not get anybody's attention with our little subletter sitcom that we're making, we could totally distribute it ourselves on Vimeo and YouTube and get people to watch it. Yeah. Which is beautiful. I love the internet for that.
Awesome. I don't like the internet for a lot of things. Yeah. I love it for that.
So in closing, you know, does everything deserve to be preserved? How do we decide?
Yeah. It's like hard, weird to think about that. And like if you're putting everything on like one scale of like should this be preserved or not, it's like I don't know. It seems arbitrary, you know. Yeah. Why should one thing be preserved and one thing should? Yeah. Because it has value to one person when that might not be the same for the next person. Yeah. Even with like the picks that we did, it's like we had
very different picks. We had different
picks. And that's like really great, honestly, because I think like I think everything has a value to something or to, like in some way, you know, if it's like a goofy comedy that you think would like really like some people would like really like latch onto, you know, that's
really formative in my sense of humor when I was a teen, so you know, very significant to me, even if they're not significant to anybody else. But some things like Song of the South, it's like, okay, you know, maybe that should just fade away. We don't need to keep watching that. Birth of a Nation. I was like, we're both thinking the same thing. Maybe we don't need
Mein Kampf. Dude, how do we keep going? Yeah. What's next?
Birth of a Nation is one of those things where it's like, I know that there is a lot of historical significance there, but I just don't feel the need to watch it. I'm not going to.
And it's long as balls too. It's like 3 hours long.
So long. And
I don't need to watch 3 hours of like just pure hatred and like racism, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It was like, it was enough for me to have learned about it in film school. Yeah. I don't need to go out of my way to watch it. I know why it's historically significant. It was the first of many things. Don't need to watch it. I'm good. Yeah. Its successors did better. So.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's like an interesting like kind of question to ponder about that stuff. Like, what does everything deserve preservation? Why shouldn't something be preserved? And it's like,
and who gets to decide? The fuckers at Criterion.
The fuckers at the Criterion Collection. The great people at the Criterion Collection. Sponsor our show, please.
Let us do closet picks.
Let's do closet picks. Please. Anyways, that's our show.
That's the show for today.
Hopefully you found this kind of interesting. I think you found it pretty interesting.
It was it was fun to talk about. Yeah. It made me think. And hopefully it made you think too. So one thing I wanted to say is we actually publish either a poll or a question along with every single episode on Spotify. So if you ever want to answer those, feel free. And we would love to interact with our audience more. So if you want to, like we said, follow us on our various social media channels, comment, subscribe, like what have you. We would love to hear from you. And we would I would really like to hear like what people want to hear from us.
Yeah, that's true as well. I think that'd be really interesting. And like, I do agree. I think we've made a bigger effort in like recent weeks to like try to interact with like the audience more, especially on social media, Instagram and stuff like that. Yeah. So hopefully, you know, if y'all want to, please let us know like what things you kind of want to hear about, what things you like enjoy more of, like what kind of episodes you enjoy more. Yeah. Because so far it's just kind of been us being like, let's do this kind of episode now, or maybe let's try this thing. I don't know, maybe this thing. Yeah. You know?
And so what's working? Let us know.
Give us feedback, but also don't be mean and don't rate us like 1 star. Rate us 5 stars no matter what.
So my question for today was going to be something along the lines of: is there any piece of media that you are afraid will be lost to time, like Dogma or Cachet or your answer?
your answer, yeah, whatever that is.
But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time.
Bye. Hurt you.